From the Gene Free Studios in Dix Hills, New York, you're listening to the FTC Soundstream, the sound of Five Towns College. We recently wrapped up the 52nd Commencement Exercises on campus today, celebrating the graduating class of 2026. Joining me in the studio is the guest speaker and recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Music this year. He is one of the founding members of Blue Oyster Cult, performing with the band since inception in 1967. And the artist behind songs like Burning for You, Godzilla, and Don't Fear the Reaper. Joining me today is the one and only Buck Dharma, a.k.a. Donald Roeser. How you doing?
Hello, Jack.
Hello. So we just heard you speak to the graduating class. Amazing speech. And we also got to see you perform, which was super cool. I just have to add, it was really something seeing you in a graduating cap and gown, and then you're ripping it on the guitar. It's a great visual.
That was fun, and it's unusual. It's atypical for a college commencement to do that. So It was fun to have the music as part of the program.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And something I loved about your speech, you were talking a little bit about your past, and I just found it very interesting going from leaving college to pursue music to now being an honorary doctor of music.
Yeah, the irony is not lost on me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about that. In your younger years, when you were going to college, I think a lot of artists too, when they're in high school and they're figuring their lives out, like a lot of young people are, what was that like, making that kind of decision to dedicate your time to music?
The way it happened was I had sort of realized that I didn't want to be a chemical engineer, which is what I went to Clarkson for. And I was casting around for another career. I left Clarkson before I really committed to music. But the summer that I had left was when the opportunity to get my foot in the door with record companies in New York City happened, with the meeting Sandy Pearlman, who was a Stony Brook graduate, and he was one of the first music journalists, and he was already being courted by record labels who wanted him to promote their artists and write about them in Crawdaddy magazine. And
wow.
And Sandy was a lyricist. He was a writer, and he would have been a performer, but he didn't really have the talent to be a front man,
Yeah.
Oh, he played harmonica and stuff, but
Yeah.
But he was so just dialed into the music scene, popular music, and he just had such a great understanding of what made bands good.
Yeah. Was there something about the time too? Because I feel like there's so many great music acts and pieces of music from the time.
Yeah, it was a hinge point in popular record making.
Yeah.
Previous to the late '60s, usually the label's A&R department would choose what songs an artist would record, and basically shepherd and produce their careers. And in the late '60s, there was just a lot of experimentation from these bands, and they started selling records. So the record companies stepped back and they let the bands really guide their own musical efforts.
Yeah, and what was that like for you too? Because I feel like your music, it's really almost like genreless. Like it's beyond really any other group, I think, at the time. And there's so many inspirations of, you could kind of get almost like a Jefferson Starship kind of feel out of it too. I feel like there's some jammier moments, almost like the Grateful Dead. How did you find that sound early on?
As fans, we appreciated lots of different kinds of music. We never felt bound to one genre. In fact, in those days, music wasn't even segregated by genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I listen to radio, the last thing I want to hear is another song like the one I just heard. I don't want to hear something totally different. That's my jam.
Do you think that's the best way to do it? Because I think nowadays too, the industry's so different. I think people are almost a little afraid to like venture off and try different things.
I don't know why the industries felt they had to just segregate things by they had to just sort everything out, and there's a country station, there's a rock station. I mean, the pop music radio wasn't that way in those days.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd hear country and rock and easy listening on the same station.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And to me, if a song is good, I'll listen to it.
Yeah. So before Blue Oyster Cult, you're in a band. It's Soft White Underbelly, which, by the way, I love the band names. Where does the inspiration come from?
That's what Winston Churchill used to call the Axis powers.
Oh, wow.
You know, Germany and Italy during World War II. He thought that invading the Axis through Italy, you know, the Mediterranean, would be the easier route compared to you know, France, Normandy, which turned out the Italians were hard to defeat, actually, because of the terrain, and the Germans were fierce fighters, and they had to go to Egypt first, and you know, where you know that airplane in the in the Indiana Jones movies.
And it's with Soft White Underbelly. I believe you guys actually you then signed with Elektra pretty early on, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We got signed to Elektra, and we did a bunch of recording for them. And during that time, the original singer, Les Bronstein, departed. You know, there was a lack of finished vocals coming out of him, and Eric Bloom was basically pressed into the band. Eric had been a crew guy before that.
Yeah.
You know, although Eric had fronted a college band at Hobart College in Geneva, New York, previous. So he definitely had music experience.
Yeah, and that early on experience too, I feel like a lot of artists, when you kind of first like break out and you get almost like because this is like a major accomplishment, you know, up until this point, like you get signed with a place like Elektra. It's almost like a pressure too of like trying to make it work, and when things kind of, you know, change like that and members kind of switch out and whatnot, I'd imagine that's, you know, it's a little tricky.
Well, we were talking about the Doors earlier, and the Underbelly actually, you know, had a lot of the vibe of the Doors, I thought, and Jack Holzman thought so. You know, he was hopeful, but anyway. The Elektra recordings never came out, as it turned out, and they came out on Rhino Records maybe 30 years later.
Yeah.
You know, I thought those tapes were gone, but evidently they're still there, and you could stream them now if you want to hear it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the band is called the Stalk-Forrest Group.
Stalk-Forrest Group. Shout out.
Yep, if you're searching for it on the streaming services.
Now, was that almost a little bit of a blessing in disguise? Because I feel like this then, you know, it's part of your journey, and eventually you then get to, you know, come into your own as an artist. You get Blue Oyster Cult, and then you guys end up being with Columbia.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we were at Columbia, and we certainly distilled our direction by the time we became Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, and was that like almost like a challenge too? Because as you're figuring out your own sound and, you know, navigating, you know, the industry is, I mean, maybe one of, if not the most difficult industries to figure out. You know, how do you stay true to yourself but also keep growing?
It wasn't scientific, you know. It's we just were who we were, and we wrote what we wrote and sang what we sang. In our group, everybody wrote and sang. There wasn't really a lead singer, you know. At least on the records, there was a lot of different vocalists.
Is that a challenge working with a lot of creatives? Because I'd imagine, I mean, you hear about bands like the Beatles where it's like, oh, you know, now John is writing something, Paul's writing something, but George, he's in the corner upset. Is that something difficult?
Maybe we were copying what the Beatles did, you know, because the Beatles are why I got excited about, you know, music and being a performer myself. It was even before I thought about writing anything, but just so many people of my generation, when they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you know, that's when the light went off, you know, in their head, and they became musicians themselves.
Yeah, I feel like the whole British invasion is responsible for so much more music. Even today, I still feel like it has numerous impacts on everybody.
Having a lot of vocalists in a band is not the most practical way to success, though. You know, it's hard for the label to decide, you know, who gets what, who gets the attention, you know.
Yeah. And does that cause is that like an added step in the writing process of, okay, trying to satisfy other people, making sure they get, you know, a song on the album?
Yeah, well, we were cooperative, and we were good about giving everybody a shot. You know, after Don't Fear the Reaper became a hit, then it caused a little problems because everybody would like to have a Don't Fear the Reaper, you know.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that too, because Don't Fear the Reaper, obviously you guys, you know, like a lot of bands, I think you're young and hungry, you're playing and you're in it, and you know, you're like anybody, you're trying to make it and, you know, do your best. That song obviously is a hit, still a hit today. I love it. what is that like, the next day? Did you have a moment where it's like, oh wow, the song's really taken off?
It built relatively slowly when I wrote it and demoed it about 2 miles from here.
Oh yeah.
I knew I had something.
Yeah.
I brought it to the band, and the band did a really good recording of it. And when we were listening to the 2-track playback, we were going, yeah, this is good,
Yeah.
And then it wasn't the first single on Agents of Fortune, but the radio stations picked up on it, and it started getting a lot of AOR play, FM play, and it just sort of broke out there. And then they did a single edit for AM, and it took about, I think, 6-7 months to be a hit.
Now, when you're writing something like that song too, do you know you have a hit on your hands? Because I feel like from a listening perspective, you hear some of these songs and you're like, this is a great song. Like, it's just everybody loves it.
Well, with that one, I just knew that it was good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all knew it was good, but we didn't know where it was going or how long it would last.
Right.
What the sustain of it would be. That's a surprise to me today.
Yeah. Now, talk to me a little bit about that early, time performing too. Is live performance part of the reason where you guys are today? I feel like there's a lot of a big change in performing nowadays too. You have a lot of artists who create music, but you might not get a chance to see them play live. And
yeah, well, Blue Oyster Cult had a reputation of being exciting live.
Yeah.
We didn't have a hit single until our fifth record.
Right. Yeah.
But we already were headlining theaters without a hit. Mm-hmm. Our first gold record was a live record, On Your Feet or On Your Knees.
Mm-hmm.
So we've always had a reputation for delivering the goods live.
Yeah.
And we mean it, and it's been the same with the evolution of personnel, and it's still it's the ethos of the band, it's what it is.
Yeah. And is there a specific process too? Because when you perform live, I mean, for some people that is like the most terrifying thing they could do. I mean, being in front of people, being vulnerable like that, and allowing yourself to perform something artistically that, maybe somebody in the crowd doesn't appreciate. Do you have a process for that, a way to kind of get into the mode of performing?
At this point, no. But, you definitely overcome that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like
stage fright, or so-and-so's in the audience tonight, hamana.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you get over it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't see anything because you went right from giving your speech to guitar in hand. I was like, wow, that was just right away. It's awesome. I feel like I would have to be like, okay, I got this. I can do this, It's really impressive. It's fantastic.
It's important for people on the way up to just get out there and do it. The ease at which you become a good performer just requires doing it. It's you have to have hours of experience.
Yeah. Do you think that still stands for artists today too? Because I mean,
oh yeah. A lot of people just record and get lucky, but they don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
But live performances, that's when the rubber meets the road. You could tell when people are lip syncing and faking and playing the tracks. I don't know. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah. No.
We always worked without a net.
Yeah. Now, when you guys are playing your music too, with your music and kind of your discography a little bit, I feel like every song's a little bit different. Did you have any challenges having to almost explain to people or prove to people like each song or just your entire set?
I think we prefer to just put it out there. I mean, our lyrics are pretty obscure.
Mm-hmm.
There's no literal explanation to it. We enjoyed having the listener, make his or her own picture in their heads, of what the song is.
Right. And I feel like you're playing too, especially guitar when you take a solo or something. I feel like it's almost like you don't play anything the same way twice. And that's, I think, an incredible blessing too, because it's creating on stage, which I don't think enough performers have today. Is that something specific in your playing you feel that you do?
Definitely. And I do it primarily for my own enjoyment.
Right.
I like to improvise. And certainly when we play our repertoire, we play the core elements are the same every night, but solos are always different.
Right. Now, obviously being in the situation where you have music that has been listened to a giant audience and people, can write stories or have theories about anything, Do you have specific things with every song when you write it that you want to come across that maybe don't always, a global audience maybe not get that theme or the story behind it?
I think we're not that conscious in terms of targeting what we do,
Right.
I think we're just trying to make it good for ourselves, be it the writer or at the band level,
Yeah, because I feel like, a great example is Don't Fear the Reaper. I feel like that song, I feel like everybody has a theory of what it could be about and different themings and stuff. And, people can really almost like go off the rails and almost take in a completely different direction. Is that something that, as an artist, that you're happy to see people, be so invested to take it somewhere? Or?
I was chagrined at the criticism of the Reaper as being, just some invitation to suicide, because
Right.
that's not at all what I was thinking about.
Right.
I think the reference of Romeo and Juliet made people think that. But other than that, no, it's a story of possibilities, that there is, planes of existence beyond ours that we see in front of us.
Right. And did that come from anywhere? Obviously, being a younger artist, too, was that something around that time that maybe, those are themes that you were seeing yourself?
Yeah, well, I've said that the idea of the fellow coming back from the dead happened because I was diagnosed with a heart arrhythmia when I was in my late 20s.
Wow. It's really young, too. It's...
Yeah, and, but after seeing a cardiologist, they said, no, you can treat this, take this pill. Says, this won't kill you. So,
wow.
And it hasn't,
Yeah.
I've taken that pill for decades,
Fantastic. That's great.
So,
great to hear that. Yeah.
But out of that experience, just the idea of no, I can come back,
Yeah.
That's sort of where it came from.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. So you guys, obviously, you're playing, and you get recognized by rock critic by a lot of people, but Sandy Pearlman, what is that relationship like, to having somebody see the music and, believe in it?
Well, what Sandy did for me and the band was just basically make it possible to give it an attempt, right? Because we got to make demos for Columbia. We got to make demos for Mercury, for Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we made demos for Elektra too. And so having that, if you want to make it in the music business, you have to be where the music business is. I do believe that. It's possible to come from another city like Seattle and get somewhere, because that does happen once in a while, or Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for us in the 70s, it was New York,
And
today it's probably Nashville, it's even
Yeah.
LA is starting to dry up,
Yeah. And do you think in New York, too, does that have something to do with your sound specifically? Because I feel like there's not a lot of people that I think would hear Blue Oyster Cult and go, oh, that's a New York, East Coast band.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that either of our iterations of bands sound like New York bands.
And was there an intentional sound that maybe in New York you're like, you know what, we don't need to do that?
No, what it was is just the pot was stirred with the people in the band, and that's what came out. That's what got cooked,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, obviously being in a band and a little bit of a larger band itself too, what is that like working with other people as opposed to when you write, a song or something by yourself? Is the process more challenging? Are there things that you think are maybe even better having other people to collaborate with?
I think it works all ways. I touched on that in my talk today. I think collaborating with people is really useful, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah,
because you will both, or I don't know how many people you do it with. The more people that you work with, the more open your mind will be to possibilities.
Right. And I think today, too, in today's age, I feel like there's less and less bands, more and more solo artists, and something you touched upon in your speech, too, was the use of AI nowadays, too. And that's, a big hoopla, a lot of artists, especially here where we have a lot of artists, some people are really against it. Some people are on the side of, there's no fighting it. We got to use it.
That's my view, basically.
Do you think that's something that will help musicians?
Well, it's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the incidental music industry is just going to go away.
Right.
Same with graphic artists. I feel sorry for artists that are really talented, but they can just, people can get what they need from a piece of art. If it's not fine art.
Mm-hmm.
Fine art will never be synthesized.
Yeah.
But I think that creative humans can leverage the tools.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't do it, somebody else is gonna.
Absolutely.
That was my message.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, it's a tough balance, because I think also when you're working, let's say, in a band and you're collaborating with other people too, sometimes it can lead to some frustration, sometimes there's creative differences. Do you think that's something that people should maybe try to avoid, or do you think that's important as well?
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
With people collaborating in a band together, instead of maybe working on their own, where somebody might, I need a drum track, or I need something for the bass, let me turn to AI or something. Do you think it's almost better to have people collaborate in that sense?
I think the best thing is to everybody be in a room and create something. I know that's not the way it's done today, is because everybody's got a studio and everybody just drops a part in. That can work.
Right.
But and we have worked that way, Blue Oyster Cult. But the best creative thing, arrangement-wise, is to have live musicians playing at the same time.
Right. Now, I want to ask you too, because obviously you're still putting out music. Is there a big difference now from when you started to how you would approach a song nowadays, or even how you perform? Is there a big difference that maybe young artists might be interested in, that you think people should keep an eye out for as you go on in your careers?
Geez, I mean, I would be a terrible guy to predict how to succeed today, because I don't know.
Yeah.
When most of the chart music that I listen to, and I do like needle drop on the charts,
Right.
But most of the songs, I just don't care for the idioms of popular music,
Right.
So
Yeah.
but where was I going with that? I don't know.
Well, I want to ask you too. Obviously, here we are at Five Towns College, and the Creative College of Long Island. I want to ask you one final question. That is, if you can tell your younger self, or a young artist here today who's maybe just graduated, getting ready to enter the real world, and kind of tackle on that giant beast of adult life and working in their industry. Do you have any advice for anybody here today, graduating, looking to be successful?
Yeah, I would just say again, just get out there and do it. Don't be reticent, because that the neck of the funnel is really small, and and you probably won't get through. But the more not outrageous, but just the more on purpose you are, the more you'll get noticed. And you will attract other talented people. And no one really makes it totally on their own. You have to get a break. You have to get someone's got to see the value in you. And work that way with it. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate you coming in today, talking to us. Just really, cannot thank you enough. For everybody at home, that's going to do it for this interview for the FTC Soundstream. I'm Jack Barton, and thank you for listening.